Another day, another tragedy. I wanted to talk about the recent shooting that happened in Atlanta, Georgia, a little bit of a more serious video. But I do want to stay a little bit on top of the trends, and this is one that, has become sadly a trend in America recently. Not even recently now. It's been, a decade where we've seen a lot of high profile incidents. And it's just really sad. Of course, I offer my condolences to the families. um, it's a horrible tragedy. They talked about in some of the news conferences I saw, how it's a day that I think it was actually the Georgia governor said, it's a day that all parents dread. And I think the saddest part about that quote is parents shouldn't even be dreading it at all. Um, and of course, it's been politicized. Of course, we knew it would be, especially in an election year. It's already been politicized, and I'm sure the politicization will only continue. I don't really want to talk about that, though. I don't really have any interest in talking about that. What I do want to talk about is two things. One thing I remember, the other I hope I remember by the end of the video. But the first is I've been thinking a lot about how situations like this have been happening a lot on YouTube, and channels that usually cover comedic situations are forced to cover news cycles, and it's become a lot of news recently. There's a lot of YouTube drama. There's a lot of, bad people in the influencer space coming out. There's a lot of tragedies going on. And those people that usually are there for laughs have to increasingly turn to somber reporting. And it kind of has made me think about comedy, and I'm gonna put forward a theory here, and I just want to see if it lands. Feel free to let me know how far off I am. But knock knock jokes used to be very funny as children. They were very funny to us, and even if you look back at like old kind of jokes from old TV, old sketches, skits, stand up routines, they can tell very simple jokes, very, PG jokes, and they get great laughs. Like Jerry Seinfeld, for instance, a lot of his comedy is pretty, boomer friendly, but it works and it's not that dark. But humor nowadays, and I'm not really gonna sit here and say that I'm any better. I'm not. Um, it's so much darker. It's really dark, and it really latches into the darkest parts of humanity as like the go-to to get a laugh. And that's such a strange thing. And it makes me wonder if that's because these tragedies just happen so much more, or at the very least, there's so much more advertised and talked about. And you can blame that on the news cycle if you want. You can blame that on social media if you want. The point is, they're talked about. And maybe that just forces people to look for something more dark, something that takes it to a more extreme to get the laugh out of them, to get an emotion out of them, is I guess what I should say. We've become so desensitized in the news to a tragedy taking place. And I think that's just because news travels faster. You can hear about every single tragedy going on in real time. In real time. You hear about the shooting as it's happening, as they're getting kids out the door. They don't even have kids out the door before you've heard about it. And I think maybe that could be why, humor and comedy has gotten so much darker. Um, and it just makes you think, it really does just make you think because, on the one hand, I appreciate some good dark humor. I'm quite a fan, but there's sometimes where you wish it wasn't necessary to get a laugh, that you didn't have to go quite that far. Because oftentimes now comedy is just, let's see if I can say this and get away with it and just say it was a joke. It's not really a joke, but I'm just going to call it a joke, and it's that dark that some people will laugh. Enough people will laugh that I can get away with it. But anyways, back on the shooting, obviously I'm not going to talk about the shooter. I don't want to comment. It's been too recent on motivations or anything like that. Obviously a very disturbed individual. Super sad day for America. Just a couple weeks into the high school year, we found out that two students died, and a football coach along with another teacher. along with 9 other students being injured. I'm not sure what their condition is, but overall, it's just another one of those days that just makes the heart hurt. And this time it actually got my mind thinking about, where we are as a country. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.